Yeah, if you're looking for good content, just break into something, right?
Welcome to the Photofocus September Roundtable in 2022. It's called Autumn, Ron, is the name of this one. As always, I'm joined by Rob Moroto from the Great White North. This month we have a guest co-host. Finally have him on, Dave Wilson from Texas, and we're having a returning featured author from the Roundtable episode 1, where it all started. Lauri Novak is back. Welcome, everybody. How are you? Let's start. We usually go backwards. Let's start with Rob. How's it going? We haven't talked in a little while.
It's going well. You know, it's things are getting colder, and geez, I think I saw frost the other day. So, you know, welcome to Canada.
Yeah, that's why I always call it the Great White North.
Exactly.
And coming probably in the opposite situation, Dave Wilson out in Texas. How are you, man?
Hey there.
Texas photographer that I've
Tell you what,
met originally photo walking. So it's good. We're going to talk a little bit about photo get-togethers
in California.
Yes.
Yeah, gosh, I'm just sitting here thinking I'm dreaming of frost. We're still up in the 100-degree range. It's horrible down here. Canada sounds great just now.
Yeah, salmon run has started, and the rivers are nice.
And Lauri, besides the wind, which I understand is actually from people talking, lying.
Politicians.
Yeah, that's the wind they refer to, right? But
it is also windy though, because
Yeah.
the wind goes through the canyons of the buildings. So it means that too sometimes. But
man, I miss going to Chicago once a year for shooting. It's just,
yeah.
I didn't know I loved Chicago until I went there, focused on photography. Then I loved it. But you can find that. Oh, I'm Ron. I'm in the always mild Northern California, so that's boring. I'm Ron Pepper. I'll be your host with the controls today. RonPepper.com. We all have our vanity websites, right? RobMoroto.com, DaveWilsonPhotography.com, LauriNovak.com. Nice.
Good job.
Yeah, I don't think you could be a photographer without being a narcissist.
Ooh, that's a strong word.
That's a very good topic.
Oh, wait, let me write that down.
It's a good topic.
Rob's
I think I prefer self-publicist, actually.
Yes.
Self-aggrandize. Maybe like sports. The real sports stars have to be you just have to have this ultra strong confidence that even when something doesn't work out, you always just think it's going to work out. Is that something like that you need?
Yeah, I think so.
I wish maybe I need to work on that a little bit.
I don't have it. That's why I'm saying it. It just doesn't seem like I have it. So.
Well, it sounds like a good topic. I wrote down narcissist, and then in parentheses I put Rob, but I didn't mean that you are one. I meant that that's your.
You brought it up.
You did bring it up.
That's right.
Let's face it, for the first couple of episodes, I was worried about how my hair looked on a podcast. So,
yeah. I couldn't get, if you weren't around for that, I couldn't get Rob to put on headphones because headphones help because it's better for recording. There's a lot of reasons. That's why all the pros do it. And he didn't want to mess up his hair.
Oh.
yeah.
I have the perfect hair for podcasting. Space for podcasting as well. Come to think of it, yeah.
Yeah, Rob, that is good hair. For, you're hanging on for your ripe old age.
Yeah, not bad for 47. Still trying to hang on there.
47. Let's really quick. We're going to today we agreed on a few topics about a little bit about mobile versus DSLR or real cameras, mirrorless DSLRs. We want to talk a little. Something we talk about in different ways a lot on this show. I think is about workshops, and we wanted to talk about something about how the leaders handle themselves. And then for the main topic, we want to keep it photo related, shooting related. So we're going to wax on about fall photography, a couple articles, and our ideas and tips and experiences. So before that, really quickly, thank our sponsor, Photomedics, for high dynamic range photography. I believe, I don't know about Lauri, but I know the other three of us use it in different some levels from big to small, I suppose. For Rob and myself, we'll use it for a lot of interiors, for capturing the dark interior that has that bright window, or maybe it's overlooking the beach or something. You want to capture all the dynamic range by bracketing in the camera and then put it all together using Photomatics.
Yep.
Try it
Can't
out.
actually
It's
do
free.
my job without it, so it's great.
I literally, and people know, if you don't know, if you're a listener and don't know, I'm quite an insider. I've been doing stuff with and for that company for a long time, but it has, because it kind of made me able to go make a business out of panoramic photography back in about 2004. And you just can't light a 360 scene. So it was just a huge change, and I've been using it for different reasons ever since. If it comes up in it's a great sponsor. If it comes up in discussion, great. But I just want to mention, try it free, hdrsoft.com, and then just click download. It's free to try. And contrary to what people say, the trial doesn't expire. It just adds watermarks. And watch for a new version coming up pretty soon. Version 7 coming soon. Okay, so let's go into our first topic about a great question brought up by Lauri. So I'll asking, do we still need to differentiate between mobile images, so from our camera phones, or our, not even phones anymore, just our handheld devices that go in our pocket, the rectangular shape, compared to real cameras? Lauri, do you want to start out with what brought it up to in your mind?
Yeah, I just I was traveling in July, and it was a 2.5 week trip, and it was 100 degrees for several of the days. And by the last day, I did not want to carry my bag with me anymore. I didn't want to carry my camera. I didn't care anymore. I was like tired of it all. So the very last day we were in Munich, I used my phone the whole day. And when I posted some images, I made a comment about being the phone. Actually wrote an article for Photofocus about not taking out your quote unquote real camera when you're traveling, and just using your phone. And someone made a comment about the fact that, well, why do we even have to distinguish anymore? Because seriously, the phones on the cameras that are available to us on our phones nowadays are pretty amazing.
Well,
Go
especially
ahead.
with Apple's new Apple iPhone 14 Pro that has a 48 megapixel camera on it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Dave, do you already have that?
No, I'm still on 13 Pro here, which is still
But it's
pretty darn
amazing.
good.
Yeah,
I know, it's remarkable.
But the one thing somebody brought up though is that the sensor size still matters, right? Because if you're selling and you need to blow an image up fairly large, you may not be able to do that still. I mean, it could be 40 megapixels, but it's still taken on a sensor size that's this big.
And with small sensor comes different issues.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But even with a camera phone image, you can get a 12x17 print that looks fabulous out of it, even with a 12 megapixel sensor.
Right.
And the argument to me often comes down to kind of gear snobbery. What matters is, what does the picture look like? Who cares what you took it with?
Yes.
Did you take a phone? You could take a pinhole camera, whatever. As long as that final image is awesome, I don't care how you got it. Well, I do care, but the fact that it's a phone versus a $10,000 Hasselblad or whatever is irrelevant.
Right.
No, it's absolutely true. My mentor, John Sharp, he used to say to me, he says, look, we don't buy lenses for our clients. We buy lenses for ourselves. And because your client's not going to throw on an extra zero on the end of your paycheck because all of a sudden you use a Zeiss lens rather than your regular Canon lens. And he's absolutely right. And I think for us as professional photographers, it is part of that joy that we get from using really good glass that makes us really appreciate what can come out of the cameras. But at the end of the day, when you see it from a viewer's standpoint, and if they're only looking at it on their phone, they can't tell the difference whether it was shot on a medium format or if it was shot on a phone. And all they're looking for is composition, lighting, and the details. Rarely do you ever get close enough to it to see it.
Well, who here sells prints?
I sell prints.
redefine that: sell prints or offer prints for sale. They're two different things.
I've sold a print now.
Yeah.
No,
But, I mean,
I sell prints, and I know others who sell fairly large, 60-inch by whatever prints, which from a phone they might not be able to do. Then again, the software that's out there these days might enable them to upsize their phone images to be okay for sale that large. So
you might be surprised again. I think of an example I had from a few years ago where a client licensed a 6 megapixel image I'd taken with a D70 or something years ago for a billboard. And I'm thinking that's kind of pretty awful, but they printed it, and it was hanging in the Austin airport, in fact. And I was shooting a job for the airport shortly afterwards on a scissor lift inside the terminal, and I got the driver to take me over to look at this billboard, see how it looked, and it was remarkable. The upscaling they'd used, and this was 10 years ago now. A 30 by 20 foot image from a 6 megapixel image original looked fantastic.
right,
So
and
Yeah.
Rob said, you're not looking at it up close. You
But
know,
even
if
close
you
up,
looked
it
at
was
it,
way
if you-
better than I thought.
really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again,
that's
think about it,
billboards are
99
billboards are
20
famously
DPI or
for
something, yeah.
viewing distance with those enormous well, now pixels, I guess, but they're
Yeah.
you're looking for so far away that that's always been kind of a
It was surprising to me, but again, for the majority of people, probably 99% of images are shared online or viewed on a phone.
Mhm.
So having something that's capable of doing a 60 by 40, 300 DPI image is not the kind of thing most people are looking for, I suspect. We will be, perhaps, but not the average
right.
Yeah.
camera user or phone
Right.
user.
You know, it's funny. I was having this conversation with one of my interns, and he said, "Well, what's the biggest risk in your line of business?" And because I do real estate photography, I said, "Well, my biggest risk is that these phones are going to get so good that you don't actually need to have a real estate photographer. You could just go in, level your iPhone, and go click, and you could get a really good shot of these interiors." And we're slowly getting to that point. And we were talking about what is it about the cell phone photos that are so enticing to people these days. And the more we talked about it, we realized that, you know, we're in a world right now where there's so much photography being used in ads and so much photography being used in magazines. Everything is visual, right? And the heyday of the photographers and coming up with these brilliant images is sort of, how do I put it? I don't want to say it's past, but it's sort of saturated our consciousness so that we're so used to seeing brilliant, well photographed things to the point that now we're looking on Instagram and seeing pictures of people who have taken selfies on their cell phone because it's more real. We're looking for a real experience, a real connection now, and these cell phone photos give us that because it's not. We don't assume that it's manufactured or dramatically lit in some sort of way that we photographers can do. We can make anything look good. Like we can make a hamburger look like it's a $1 million meal, but it's not. It doesn't feel real. And I think the allure to these mobile phones is that it feels more real because you can't do much more with it than you can with, say, our professional gear. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
That ties in quite nicely with another thought I had, which was that there's so much computation involved in mobile phone photography now that the images you get out of a phone can feel like they look better than out of a camera.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking
Just
about
like
HDR
instant
back
cameras.
there. The cameras nowadays, or the phones nowadays, are doing HDR on pretty much every shot. Blending foreground, background, improving the shadow highlight details, all these are things that we would have to do in post in a camera from a RAW file. So the average user of a phone can get the same effect as we would take 15, 20 minutes to do in Lightroom or Photomatics or whatever later.
Mm-hmm. Would you, for me, the difference, I hope this doesn't go off topic because this is, should we say if we're using the mobile or not? And to me, the mobile, I mean, I carry my iPhone around all the time and I use it all the time. I would have missed thousands of photos if not for that camera. And I love it. And there's no complaining about it. The computation, as you mentioned, I'm glad you brought that up. It makes I once used it because I wasn't sure I was going to get the white. I can't remember the situation, but I didn't have a gray card, or I don't remember. So I took shots with my iPhone, and this must have been iPhone 5, it got the colors right in a situation that seemed difficult, and I used it later to see if I got the colors right. So, but what I wanted to say is that the iPhone is one of those, you're going to get what you're going to get, where you have more control. If you're going to light a scene, if you're going to use other creativity, then that's just a reason to bring in your mobile phone. But I guess it's a little bit off, not on the topic exactly of should we mention. I wanted to say that the times that I feel like I should mention this mobile shots, it's because I want people to know that, it's just a kind of a snapshot. It's so if it's not great, then that's why, I guess is what I'm,
Right.
I guess I'm implying that. So for me, it's more for that reason than if somebody wants to buy my photo that came from an iPhone, you got it. Or if I'm able to accomplish something professionally, great. I got the idea from Rob to do short real estate video using iPhone rather than using something else, and it does a perfectly good enough job, better than probably I can do myself on controlling the video. So those are my 2 cents and 2 cents.
Yeah, no, it's funny. There was a couple of years ago, I bought myself a Leica Deluxe 6, and it's a compact camera, right? Like one of the ones that you can put into like a breast pocket. It's just a small camera, but it still had a 2/3 size sensor, and I use that as my vacation camera just because with 3 kids carrying around an SLR and changing out lenses, it became too much, and my wife would be complaining that it's like, well, come on, let's go, we got to get here, we got to get there, stop taking pictures. So to the point where it's like, okay, well, if I have this little compact one, great. And it just happened to be I was at a festival, and I shot the exterior of this building, and I put it up onto Facebook and said, hey, look, here's a cool angle of this building. And then as soon as I put that up there, the event organizer was like, yeah, the building owners want to buy that shot from you. How much? And I said, well, $200. Sure, fine, here. Like, oh, and the client wants to know what you shot it on. I said, I shot it on a Leica. And that's all I said. But it didn't matter because it was a Leica. It's a Leica deal. It's a small Leica, but it was still a Leica. So they accepted that. But what was interesting at that time was that that's all they cared about. It was like a brand name. So I thought that was interesting because at the end of the day, when they looked at the high res photos, they couldn't tell the difference if it was shot on on something better.
That's an interesting question for a client to ask. I mean, normally they wouldn't know or care.
Yeah.
No, I find that it's I find that in that situation it was probably more the agency that was buying it through them to try and, I don't know, show that it was done by a professional.
Real photographer.
Yeah, was it a real camera? But
had the Leica lens. The
Well,
lens.
my phone has a Leica lens,
right?
so it's a Leica.
Yeah,
No,
definitely. And we sell, and we put this on our website, that we do simple videos, and we call it simple videos because we simply shooting it on an iPhone, and we put it on a gimbal, and we video an entire house, and we sell that to our clients. We even will teach our clients how to do it, but it's about the time, and it still looks amazing, and it's great. So yeah, the phones are good.
I have a question for everybody.
Here.
Unless you have something on that topic, I'll ask a question on another one.
Oh, I was going to say the other thing to think about here is that a photographer can take good pictures with any camera given the right location or whatever. Mm-hmm. Your eye is the same regardless of whether you're using a phone or a compact or a DSLR.
Oh, absolutely.
Give a good photographer any kind of camera, they'll come up with good images. Give a bad photographer any camera, they'll come up with bad images. I mean,
yeah. That's exactly it. I look at it like, oh my God, it's like Jackie Chan, right? So I know this is okay. I bring this up because there was a show once where Jackie Chan was the guest, and he said, "Well, of course you can do that with those nunchuck things and the bow staff, but can you do it with other things?" It's like what? It's like, here's a coat hanger. And sure enough, he was able to take people down with a coat hanger, and then they gave him some other things like stools and other props and mops and stuff. And he's like, "Yep, we can do all these." You're absolutely right. It was Jackie Chan that could do that with a coat hanger. Most other people with a coat hanger, they really couldn't do much. But
kind of makes me wonder.
Jackie Chan,
kind of makes me wonder what Peter Parker would use.
Right. I always say, as an architectural photographer, that is the one superpower that I wish I had, was to be Peter Parker, to stand on the side of a building and take pictures.
And can't he just use his he has all those functions available in his suit? He probably has a camera. I mean, he could just use
the
that.
Stark suit. That's
oh my
true.
god, that would be amazing.
So,
360.
He can just take whatever. He probably has all kinds of cameras in that suit of his.
You can spend a lot of money being Spider-Man.
So if Peter Parker or say She-Hulk or somebody wanted to lead a workshop, would you expect them to be shooting during the workshop?
I think that depends on what exactly it is, and I just I attended a workshop that was on site at a Frank Lloyd Wright property, and the person leading the workshop didn't even carry his camera with him. In fact, he gave me his tripod because I didn't have my screw for my own tripod. So he did not shoot the whole entire weekend. And I was like, it was kind of cool. I mean, I've been on other trips, tours, workshops, whatever, where I've been on the extreme where the person who is supposed to be helping other people was too busy worried about shooting their own images to even care about what everybody else was doing, which was not a good experience. I've been on them, when it's like a little bit of both, right? They're helping you, but they're still taking their own photos. And after attending that, I actually, I lead photo tours, and I just had one the first weekend in September in Chicago. And I decided, speaking of whatever camera, I decided to take my husband. He has a Lumix DMZ-60, DMC ZS60, which is just a point and shoot. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be encumbered by my gear hanging around. I'm not going to worry about what shots I'm getting for myself, because my intention on the photo tour is to make sure that the people that are attending the photo tour are going to get their own shots. And my job is to show them things that they're not seeing, or to point things out, or explain what they are, or things like that, and not focus on my own work. So I kind of did a combination of both, where with that little camera, though, I'm like, ooh, this, it was really fun. But I also was not using it much and helping the people that were with me. So I learned a lot from that guy just by him not even having his camera out the whole time. It was.
I think
cool.
it depends on the kind of group you're with. And I've seen it from both sides. I've been on photo tours where it's basically a group of half a dozen photographers. They take you to a location, dump you, and pick you up 2 hours later, having been. The guy who's running it run off to take his own pictures because he's got to reach some quota for National Geographic or whatever. And that honestly, in my case, that was great because I wasn't there to necessarily learn. I just wanted to go to a location and take some cool pictures of somewhere awesome. As a beginner, that would have pissed me off something terrible because I'd be there to try and learn and get guidance from the instructor. And if he's off doing his own thing, that would be a bad thing as far as I'm concerned.
Is there some expectation that's given by the word workshop versus tour or anything like that? I've never thought about that before.
I think so. I mean, for me, I purposely don't call my tours workshops because I'm not teaching people how to use their cameras. I'm not telling them what settings they should use. I'm not saying, okay, everybody stand here and take this shot. Pet peeve.
Please no.
Big pet peeve. I'm not doing that. I'm helping them get from one place to the next, right? I know the area. I already have our route set up. I know what locations we're going to. They're there to take photos. So my job is to make it so they don't have to worry about that stuff. They don't have to worry about where to next, or if we have to be somewhere at a certain time. But a workshop to me is more like you're going to learn something. So for 2 hours, we're going to sit in the class and I'm going to teach you how to edit, or we're going to talk about Lightroom, or we're going to do photo critiques or whatever. So that's the difference in my head. Between the two.
And even in a workshop though, when you go, Rob.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've done a few workshops where I've taught real estate photography, and it's we get all the gear brought in from Canon. Like they lend us all the gear that we need, and then we spend the first half hour showing what composition is, settings, all that stuff. And luckily for the last couple of workshops that I did, we had one of the local builders sponsor it and lend us their show home. So we'd go in and be like, okay, guys, you saw what the composition rules are. You know what the settings are. Here, go shoot, and I'm going to come up to each of you and help you fix your composition. Like, tell me what you're shooting. Tell me what your logic is, and I'll tell you what I think you should be shooting and see if we're all on the right page. And it is working with each person and working to become a better photographer. So yes, a workshop is, you're right, it's work. Yeah.
But even in a workshop setting, the amount of time an instructor can get to do their own photography will vary enormously. I mean, I've taught workshops, HDR workshops, in fact, in the past. And sometimes you'll get a group of very raw students who are fairly low in the photography totem pole, if you like, don't understand camera settings and that kind of thing. Yeah. Other times you get people who've been shooting for 25 years and just want to try a new technique. So first priority is always to look after the student and answer their questions and help them out. But sometimes you'll find you're sitting twiddling your thumbs because everyone knows what they're doing already. Mm-hmm. And you're basically a facilitator, showing them locations and giving them some suggestions on composition. Yeah. And other times you're around there teaching people what an aperture is, and
right.
people who need you to lend them tripods or batteries or whatever because they can't find it, or download their manual to figure out how to turn bracketing on and this kind of thing. Yeah. So it varies.
And that's one thing about this particular one. It was specific. It was labeled intermediate. He had specific things that you had to know how to do, or obviously you couldn't come technically.
Yeah.
I mean, but
that doesn't stop people from coming anyway. From my
I'm sure.
That's a different discussion. Yeah.
Hey, Lauri, just about that, I think people find the Frank Lloyd Wright house experience interesting. How many people were in that group in a house at one time?
8 or 10. Oh, well, we actually weren't in a house. I mean, we did stay on the property, and so the property is spread out, and there's more than one house. So there's his main big large house, and I think 2 or 3 people stayed there. There's a house up on a hill that was there. There were a couple and then 3 single people in that house. There was one small, like, little house with one other person, and then there's in what they call the barn. There's a section of that's got rooms, so there were a couple more people in there. Wow. So we were kind of spread out over the property.
So when you were shooting, it was spread out enough that you could all be shooting and not kind of waiting for one another. And
yeah, actually, it's not. Because it's a big enough house and property that you're not standing on top of each other. When we were inside the actual home, there's rooms. You could be by yourself, like in Frank Lloyd Wright's studio, until somebody kind of wanders in, and then by then you're done. So, and you're with a group of photographers. We're like, okay, I know to get out of the way, or could you get out of my way? So
that was you that posted the interview with the guy that led the workshops, if I recall, is trying to shoot all of the properties now, and that was an interesting thing. So we'll make sure to get that link in the show notes. It was an interesting, quick read. But yeah, I think everyone's fascinated. If you're a photographer, if any interest in architecture at all, you have to be interested in Frank Lloyd Wright. Even though I don't really think I like the designs. It's
funny that you say that, because a friend of mine is an architectural photographer, and she's not a fan of Frank Lloyd Wright. And from Chicago, so
it's weird to be a fan, yet I wouldn't want one of those houses. Not that it turned down, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they're just. I think maybe a lot of people feel the same way as I'm trying to describe. It's just that there's something odd, and I mean, he was. I understand that the, who's got the name of the book that was kind of based on him? The Ayn Rand book. Nobody.
Nope.
The one I'm thinking of isn't about him, but that's.
I'll probably pop up it later, and I'll mention it. But listeners are yelling at the iPod or iPhone.
I should know it. But.
I have so many windows open. I'm afraid to Google it. The Fountainhead. That's it.
That's the name of the book.
Yeah, it's based on an architect, and they say, and apparently it's supposed to be true, that that the author was a fan of Frank Lloyd Wright and kind of based it on him because he's odd in his own ways and stuff. So
he was not necessarily a nice guy either. So
yeah, now the character in the book was not called Frank Lloyd Wright, but it was supposedly.
No, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I would sign up in an instant though if I was to go to one of those workshops.
He does them in several of his. He's got one at Falling Water in October.
Ooh.
I have to
That'd be
say
fun.
no to that though.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this. We've actually got a course that we're doing up in Calgary where we are teaching people how to shoot real estate. Not as a workshop, but this is more just an online course. But we've actually done it with shooting it with mobile phones. So getting back to the previous topic, right? Like, how do you shoot a home with a mobile phone? And the idea of this, maybe we should try doing this as a workshop next, because we are at that point now where these phones are getting, 48 megapixels, getting good enough that we can actually do that.
Plus, I mean, you're teaching the basics. I'm assuming you're teaching about composition and where the best places to stand are in a room and that sort of thing. And it doesn't really matter when you're teaching it if they're using their phone or a camera or not.
Definitely. And with the optical zoom on those things it's incredible. Like the range that you can get out of one camera and the fact that you can actually take a phone and put it right into the corner of a room.
Right.
It's pretty astounding. So,
and when Rob and I, maybe we don't like to talk about this too much, but one of the things about real estate photography is it doesn't have to be perfect. That's one of the things. That's
what
to me that's the difference between architectural and real estate, is that real estate, you're going through rather fast and kind of in and out, and there's nobody's looking. They're looking for better and better. And I know my clients, I'm in the Bay Area, so it kind of makes sense. As people that like to make fun of it, the Bay Area or whatever. But so we're there. The clients are getting more sophisticated in their expectations too. So I like that I'm getting people saying, well, this thing here is not good enough. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll do it. And,
thank you very much.
Yeah, but the idea was that it's not supposed to be perfect. They've seen already a bunch of stuff that I do, so that lines up in the same area. But anyway, the point is, I think you're right, Rob, is that's going to be something that's edging in, is that people can use their camera phones, and that doesn't mean that everyone's just going to use their camera phone well enough. They're still going to have to know about composition and how to control it, and height. You always see the agents, they go in to do shots first, and of course they're tilting it down, and it looks horrible with the lines and all that. But some education, and you're right, that's going to be a risk. These instant cameras are already pushing out us 360 people, so anybody can shoot 360s now. With
I wonder if you could start using a tilt shift somehow with a mobile phone, because that would be important from the lines perspective, right?
Computational photography.
I mean, maybe
right?
Maybe.
But with the phone, well, one of the things with real estate photography, for even bracketing aside, without that, you still need tripods, just because you have long shutter speeds. Yeah. So would you still need to tripod your phone? I mean, those are a lot of those good questions, right? Because
it's funny, I've completely, talking about tilt shifts, I've completely gotten rid of all my tilt shifts.
Really?
Yeah, because I've got a Canon 5 DSR, which is 56 megapixels. And so at 56 megapixels, it's easier for me to just shoot a shot just a little bit wider, fix all the verticals in post, and then still export it at 30 megapixels, and it still looks great.
And you mentioned that because that fix includes some cropping.
It does.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and before when I was on my 5D Mark III, I was actually using a 24 mil tilt shift, and a lot of my clients wanted to have bigger images to be able to use for billboards. So using a 24 mil tilt shift,
not needed though.
You could shift it so that the lens shifts down to the lower left, then up to the upper left, then to the upper right, and then down to the lower right. And you take 4 of those shifted images, stitch them together to make a 50 megapixel image. That's around a 16 mil. And it was back then that I was using tilt shifts a lot, because I knew if we were doing that for, a big living room shot that they're going to put onto the side of a billboard, they wanted that big shot, and I could charge them a whole lot more because of the amount of work that was going into it and the stitching. It made sense, but now it's gone completely the opposite way. So
pixels equals dollars, I guess. But you're right that I used to rent tilt shifts occasionally for jobs, and I stopped doing it for the same reason. I just found that it was actually easier with all things considered. I felt like I got the same. There's still an odd look when those lines are straightened out, but it happens for me anyway. My experience, and I think people would argue, is that I didn't get any difference from doing it digitally, as you mentioned. You can straighten the lines, and then you just lose. The thing you lose is part of the actual image. There's some cropping that happens, but if you have all these pixels like we all have these days, that's enough. And anybody else have that experience, or the other way, the opposite way? No.
Never used tilt shift.
No.
Sorry,
because
I missed that whole phase.
The one that I mentioned, Lauri did that post with that interview of the Frank Lloyd Wright photographer guy. He mentioned that he just swears by tilt shifts, and so I'd love to do a kind of a comparison. Add that to the list of things that'll never happen. But
yeah, I think you'd be very, very hard pressed to take one photo with a tilt shift and then one photo where you're just using a larger zoom or a wider zoom, fixing all the verticals, and then putting them side by side at a smaller like an equal megapixel, and see if you can actually see a difference. And if you can see the difference, point out what it is, and say why it's better or worse. Like I can't imagine that it'd be that stark of a difference that it would make sense to spend that much more time, because those tilt shifts are a pain in the butt to actually use.
Well, I suppose once you become really good at it, it's probably
like
once you're an expert at it, you probably
yeah.
As I'm definitely all for, like we're talking about, you can use it. Like, while I agree that give a great photographer a mobile phone and give a bad photographer a great camera, and you know what'll happen. At the same time, especially when you're talking about professional situations where you're the professional, you're there to get the thing, get the shot, do it right, do it properly, get it right, without any risk of having to come back and try again. That's one of the things that makes pro to me. And you do need the right tools for the job. So if you get the best results and the results that your client's expecting, since they've seen your past work, and that's a tilt shift, then by all means, I wish I had one. I've just never splurged on it. I just used to rent them. But anyway, Will
it's funny,
says
like between like the amateurs and the professionals, I always like with cameras, anybody can get a great shot. And oh my God, I'm looking at some of the shots that my mother-in-law has gotten on her iPhone 14, and or 13, and they're amazing. The difference that I find for us as professionals is the expectation on us, because if we go to a wedding and we take pictures, and everybody at the wedding is taking pictures, there's going to be great pictures all around. The difference is that the expectation on us is that a higher percentage of our pictures have to be great. Mm-hmm. Whereas, if all the guests get one or two really amazing photos, great. That's not luck of the draw, but that's about right. But as a professional, I would say that 8 out of 10 of our shots have to be amazing, right?
Yep.
And that's what we can do. So regardless of if it's an iPhone or if it's a regular phone or a regular camera, I bet you that if anybody looked at the photos on our phones and compared it to the photos on their phones, a higher number of our photos are going to be amazing, whereas theirs, they're going to have 1 or 2 out of every 50 that are amazing. So
totally agree. Well said. I wanted to add one thing that iPhones are doing. I don't know about other mobile devices. I suppose they have this too, and we should probably give some props, because I've played with cameras on some of the Androids that are shockingly great too. So I just have an iPhone. But the only reason I'm thinking about upgrading this time, I have an 11, so it's pre LiDAR, so it doesn't have that's the distance sensor, right? Mm-hmm. And so one thing that more current iPhones can do that my fancy DSLRs can't do is know the distance, which means you can instantly change backgrounds, remove backgrounds much better than the way we do selections now. Because I think we all agree that selections is one of the biggest things that we have to do, or photographers do in Photoshop, and it's a whole art form to selecting out a subject, whether it's a person or a window or whatever it is, sky, whatever it is. All these things and all these tools come in. Well, my friend who has a newer iPhone was demonstrating. We were just taking pictures of each other one time in the bar, and instantly the backgrounds were perfect right there in the Lightroom camera on the phone. And I'm like, well, the best cameras that I know of anyway, there's no SLR, DSLR, or mirrorless that can do that. And so I guess I'm a little bit calling out all the camera companies. Come on, like, I mean, I have Olympus. I have Olympus stuff that has all kinds of fancy, creative, great things in it, and I have Nikon, which isn't fancy, but it does a great job. Well, who's going to do like a LiDAR?
But you go out and spend 10 grand on an f/0.95 lens and get the same effect.
Yeah.
But I can't select it necessarily.
Yeah, I know. Yes, the changing the depth of field after the fact I always find magic.
Yeah. That's obviously that's an amazing thing, and having the depth of field that way can make selecting easier, can make it harder too. But that's why selections are such an art form. There's all these different ways of doing it, and if I just want to just go ahead and remove someone from a background completely, then that LiDAR thing is just amazing. And I'm wondering when who's going to do it? Sony, Olympus, Panasonic.
Yeah.
Who's going to do it? It's not going to be Canon or Nikon, right?
No.
They're slow to the party.
It's it's really changing and really becoming interesting, because I think the one trend that I've started to see was that because all these phones now can do photos and they can do videos, people are starting to take good photos, and they're also starting to take very good video. And so now they switch it up onto us and say, hey, so I see you got a DSLR, here, take some video. It's like, I'm not a videographer.
Just like that. Yep.
Yeah.
Just like that.
And it's so bad now, because all of a sudden now they're like, well, I can do the video on my phone. It's like, well, I could do it on your phone too, but you're asking me to do it on a DSLR. It's like, so
I can do it personally. I'll call myself out. I can do a much better video on my phone than I can on my fancy cameras. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. It's just like the old, like when there were instant cameras, now it's mobile cameras, mobile phones. But why, when I get this fabulous SLR or mirrorless, why are my photos not as good? Because I don't know how to use it, right? and the same way, I'd rather have my phone decide the best video than me, because I'm not very good at it yet. So I'll get there.
One day. Maybe we'll have a workshop on that.
Let's do that. I'm good enough. Oh, should I say this out loud? I'm good enough for a real estate video, Yeah.
And there you have it. There is the tagline, right? It's like, I'm good enough.
That's gonna go in the outro anyway. All right. So moving along on that awkward note, one of the things that on the monthly show that we do is try to get the audio listeners, people like me. I do audio podcasts and things, but I hardly ever sit down and read an article of any kind on the internet. So I like to bring on one of the authors each time, and we have Lauri. We just didn't really introduce you yet, but Lauri Novak is in Chicago, and one of the most prolific. You're posting a lot on Photofocus. So we wanted to make sure that listeners can kind of know a bit about the authors, and maybe if you want to cross over and read more, then that's a great idea, because there are several articles, some by Lauri and some by other people, just about different types of fall photography, autumn photography. They told me I'm supposed to say, but I had already written down fall. So that's that season where the colors change is what I'm talking about, and it gets a little colder, and at least in this hemisphere, because we have some Australian people on sometimes and listening, but in this hemisphere it's getting colder, it's getting rainier, but on the good side the colors change, and you get a whole different look outside. So I wanted to make just although there's an article linked in the show notes that Lauri put up about macro and fall leaves, it's a good place to start. But I wanted to kind of talk about our fall tips and experiences. So let me throw it first to Lauri since it's really your article. But because my main thing would be to think about macro, so it's perfect for you to start.
Well, and I just think that when you think of fall photography, macro doesn't always come to mind.
Right.
We always think of the big sweeping landscapes with the colors or waterfalls with the one leaf on the rock, or long exposures in the stream swirling around with the colors. Those are the types of things, I think, things like that people tend to want to shoot the most. Maybe it's more popular. It's the I don't know, beauty shots, pretty shots, and they're gorgeous. But my whole thing with my own photography too is to do things differently and to see things differently. So I'm always on the lookout for something else that still fits into fall photography, but might not be something that you see much of. So again, macro, I think people don't always think about that when they're out to shoot fall colors. But it's a great place to shoot fall colors, macro, and get in on the details of leaves. And things are dying too. So even the leaves that aren't quite looking good still, there's a lot of character and texture and those kind of things too that comes with fall. So I think it's a good place to venture out to if you're used to doing the sweeping landscape type of fall work.
Yeah. What about you, Dave? Do you have anything that you do in the fall that's kind of your go-to or that you look forward to? Or?
Leaving Texas is number one because we don't have fall here. It's unbearably hot till the end of October, and some of the trees turn sort of November-ish and drop their leaves in a day, and then it's kind of unpredictable until April and it gets hot again. But getting out of Texas, I do love fall photography, and we have a photography group that typically takes a week every year and goes somewhere. And invariably it's the fall, and the Northeast. Went up to Acadia a couple of years back, and it was glorious, and the Smoky Mountains. It's fantastic. But as far as things that I shoot in the fall that are maybe surprising, I love shooting abstracts in the fall. The vistas are glorious, and my two favorite fall pictures ever are one's a macro and one's just a close-up. But one thing I love doing is intentional camera movement stuff, when you've got the reds and the yellows and the oranges, and you move the camera in particular ways, you can get some gorgeous abstracts, swirling patterns if you hold the zoom and turn the camera as you're firing the shutter, or just flicking the camera up during a shot to get streaks. And I can spend an afternoon doing that quite happily, as long as I have some decent color in front of me.
That's a good idea. A photo walk can be anywhere in the fall. Like, in fact, when I think we were talking about on the Q&A show last time. I think, Rob, I had Jeff Sullivan on, who's everybody does workshops, right? But I think we talked about fall photography there too. And one of my things was just that think of the fall, like even if it's a rainy day or semi-rainy day or very overcast day, don't forget that that's a great time for photography too, where we sit here and go, oh, well, it's ugly outside, so I'll do something inside. No.
Oh, yeah.
Change that attitude and
go. Colors.
Yeah, the colors, right. And
like the
great soft box in the sky. You have all those clouds being the soft box.
Right. Yep.
None of those hideous highlights. Yeah, it's great.
So it's a great time to go out and be creative. That's a good idea. And you can do those abstracts just in your backyard, right? or wherever you have. Yeah.
Lauri, it's interesting that you were talking about the macros of autumn, because usually when we think of macros and seasons, it's people do a lot of macro photography in the spring when the flowers are just blooming, or in the winter when they get those macro shots of the ice and the snowflakes and stuff. But autumn, you're right. Autumn's always been one of those ones where everyone's going for these vast landscapes of changing colors. But it's interesting. I'll be going out and trying to do some macro stuff, because that is more of a challenge to find something interesting in autumn, because it hasn't been done very much. I remember when I absolutely hate doing some of these landscape shots in the fall. There's this one river by where I live. It's the salmon run up it, and it's beautiful all the leaves turn red and orange, and I want to take this beautiful shot, slow shutter speed, put the ND filter on, and make the water all look wispy and everything. And then inevitably, I'm waiting for that perfect time when there's no wind, so the trees aren't moving. But, after around 10 seconds, something moves. And it's just heartbreaking. Just click, wait, click, wait. No, this one's still moving. This one's still moving. To the point where it's like, okay, screw it. You know what? I'm going to do a long exposure. I'm going to do a short exposure. I'm going to blend them all together and make it work. And, and I don't know. I find landscape photography quite infuriating at times. So the macro actually may not be a bad thing for me to try and do.
It helps the brain switch over.
Yeah, and you can always bring it inside too. Go out and collect a bunch of leaves, acorns, pine cones, or whatever, and do the macro inside if you don't want to be out for whatever reason.
Hey, can I tie this and the last conversation together by somebody was mentioning doing macro just in the summer or whatever. And when you do that, if you're outside, you're probably going to you're going to be either under shade or make your own shade and bring in lights and things like that for macro typically, or maybe I'm just making it too difficult. But I think in the fall, when we're talking about all those clouds and maybe rain, you might not need all that stuff. So maybe you can use that with your mobile phone, your mobile camera, and get still, and the new, I wish we had an Android user here because there's no one to represent that, but I know the newer iPhones have a macro ability.
Oh, no, I have an Android.
Oh, and
I have a Huawei phone though. So it has a pretty decent macro. I'm still like mourning over the Samsung S3 macro that they got rid of when they changed that particular version because that one was really good. This one's okay.
Is that the latest?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not the latest. But it has a Leica lens.
That makes it professional.
That's right.
There's a huge building near me with a big Leica sign on it, and it's a beautiful modern looking. It's not Frank Lloyd Wright, but it's still modern looking. I need to just walk in there and see what's going on. Maybe there's some good content there. Maybe I can test some things.
Right?
I don't know. I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, if you're looking for good content, just break into something, right?
You can break in.
And then brag about it in a public podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Rob said break in. And
Clever, Rob.
See, right there is why I often in my life have gone by Pepper than Ron, because they get me mixed up with the Robs of the world. And that's exactly one of the times I don't want to be mixed and confused.
If anything, I'm a good role model for what not to do.
Someone on this show added in a great link about a map of fall foliage. And I want to point out that it says fall foliage and not autumn foliage, just so you know.
It's an American map.
Yeah.
It's a map of North America. It's not even North America. It's just the USA. It doesn't have Canada in it. But it's been quite useful when we plan our trips every year. If we want to do fall foliage, we can kind of set the sliders the week we're planning to go and get an idea of where the best areas are.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's quite handy. No, it doesn't. Obviously, it's just a prediction, so it can be horribly wrong, but it's reasonably right for the 2 or 3 times we've used it in the past.
Well, you can be pretty sure if you get up to Telluride, you can be pretty sure you're in a good spot, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, looking at Montana, that going to the Sun Road is just absolutely gorgeous during the fall. Mm-hmm. So just by Glacier National Park there. I wonder when that's going to be.
What other kinds of fall photography I saw? I think this must be your note, Dave, about football, and I've been doing that.
Joke,
well, I was gonna say though, there's all kinds of other things going on, like fall sports.
Yeah.
There's around here. There's a ton of festivals going on. Oktoberfest, fall whatever festivals. There's a Scarecrow Fest in one of the towns nearby. Mm-hmm. There's all that kind of stuff going on as well. That are opportunities for different sorts of event photos or pumpkin fests, all that kind of stuff is kind of fun to go out and shoot too. And there's still car shows going on here too. So
you could do great candids, go to great candids at some of these festivals.
And that sometimes is a good way to try to drum up business as well. By introducing yourself to the people you're taking photos of, or talk to the people who have organized the festival or the whoever it is, if it's the city or whatever, and make some contacts, and might get some business out of it.
What are the other fall sports? My kid's in football, so we pretty much focus on that. But what are the other fall sports as far as high school, college goes?
Marching bands.
I haven't seen a lot of photos on social with that, actually.
Do any of you guys do any portraits during the fall? Like, I remember
occasionally.
I don't.
Like I used
Most of the spring though.
Really, I used to get all sorts of requests for family portraits in the fall when the leaves are falling, and baby pictures where you throw the leaves up in the air and the leaves are falling around it, and the kids are looking up with that doe-eyed look, like, why is mommy throwing all these leaves on me? Right? And
that relies on there being leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do all that kind of stuff in Texas in the spring, because that's when the wildflowers come out. So they have the ritual family trampling of the bluebonnet sessions.
Oh.
But there aren't enough leaves to justify any fall shooting, really.
Yeah, I guess throwing cactuses in the air for children is
it's painful, especially if you're the one having to pick them up and throw them. Yeah.
For those that are if you're in Argentina, Australia, or something, then you're in the spring, and people that are in I'm from Washington State, where it's the evergreen state, so you don't get any of that. Don't get much of that color change, and so they need something a little more, I don't know, a little more creative and something else to think of. So far we've got sports, abstracts, and
pumpkins.
You can still do macro.
Right? Halloween costumes, trick or treating.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, fall also means typically more rain, so maybe your waterfalls start flowing better, and you get some more water pictures. Perhaps hasn't started here yet, but
yeah. Actually, there was one amazing photographer that I saw that was just taking pictures of the rain hitting the ground and just macro shots, and it's incredible the amount of patience that it must take to just be that close to the ground with the camera in the rain, taking shot after shot after shot after shot, hoping that you get that one shot where the raindrop is actually hitting the puddle,
right,
and splashing perfectly.
And probably the frames per second of some kind of a new mirrorless camera could do that, right?
Like that's dedication for you there to an art, and and here I am, I'm taking pictures of couches in people's houses, and so,
I'm willing to bet that the couches pay better than the raindrops, but you never know.
Probably, but still.
That's one of the reasons to do things like this, is to motivate ourselves and others to just remember of the fun things of photography and the chance to get creative, and the fact that, hey, I consider myself lucky that I'm very busy and that I can make a living with the camera, and that doesn't mean that I'm just taking creative, fabulous things all the time. It isn't, and I know that thus far know that, but you don't want to give that impression. And so it's great to remember to have fun with that thing, and really just challenge yourself, do something different. I've been really liking volunteering, but doing types of photography that I'm not experienced at, and getting that experience and just really liking that. It helps motivate me to be, culling and editing in the evening, where maybe it was partly the pandemic era, but I just was tired of sitting in front of the darn computer, and I just want to get away from it. And by shooting it, not only gets me away from it, but then it makes me enjoy being in front of it more. So I guess that's one reason I'm recommending to just get out and shoot something. That's everybody's advice, right? Is get out and shoot something to get better.
Oh,
and also for your own soul and your own balance and zen and
absolutely
yin or yang, then for the same reason. So
the saddest thing that ever happens, and this happens to a lot of professional photographers, is that because they do photography every day, day in, day out, that when it comes down to it, they lose the passion for photography. They hate photography because it's just work. And I feel so bad for when that happens, because you've taken something that was a passion of yours and you've killed it by making it so much you made it into just work, and so anything to bring that passion back is definitely recommended.
But
Keep
if
it
you can,
lively.
it goes full circle like that, where my experience, and that doesn't only go for photography, a couple other things in life, like working from home. I was so thankful to be doing that after working 60, 70-hour weeks in the hospitality business and all that. But there was it came full circle where I kind of it didn't feel the same. I didn't like it anymore. And so photography can have that same thing, but I would encourage anyone listening to still, you have a lot of knowledge, where you have experience in certain areas that you have experience in photography and some that you don't, but you have all this gear and everything. So use it for some fun things. So again, just to, because I only have my own experiences, I've been a sideline football photographer for high school. So a lot of people are like, I would never want to do that. And that's cool. But I love doing that because I'm just learning and doing something different. I'm shooting the breeze with the other photographers that do that for a living. I'm on the sideline, which is fun for me because I'm a fan. I just like the sport. My kid's out there, I can focus on getting shots of him, and everybody else, you get what you get. And so it's, anyway, that has been helpful for me. It gets me doing things that I wouldn't have been doing before. It gets me better at using post-processing for things that I don't normally do. It just has all these layers of things. So I know I'm diatribing, but get out, find if you're kind of reach that rut, which I did, try to find some things like that, and it'll really help.
Yeah.
Or go to Rob's course or Lauri's walk, or when Dave starts doing workshops again.
Yeah, thanks, Lauri. I'll be definitely trying out some macro stuff. I've got I've got an interesting macro lens that I haven't used in a while, so I'll probably take that out and see if I can conjure up something interesting.
Well, let's start to wrap here and go around and tell everyone where to best find your work or whatever else you wish people to know about. Let's start with Dave. You're the first time guest. Let's start with you.
Wow. Where you can find me, well, DaveWilsonPhotography.com is my main site. You can find me with the same name on Instagram and Facebook. So take a pick.
Oh.
And Vero for that matter. I just signed up for Vero as well recently.
Oh, we have to have you next time you're on. We need to talk about the various those apps, because that's one of the things we tend to talk about sometimes on this show, and we'll talk about that again soon. And I've been on photo walks with Dave. I've tried to be on more that I couldn't go to. Very accomplished, while modest photographer. So check him out. Lauri, I can say the same. I can say the same about everybody here, I guess. But Lauri, what else? Take out modest and then Rob. So Rob, Rob the narcissist. Tell us all the 29 places people can find you.
All right. Okay. I am Rob Moroto at Rob Moroto on Facebook and on Instagram. You can find me as well at robmoroto.com. And yes, eventually one day I will finish this darn course and get it out so that people can learn about real estate photography and how to use HDR Sauce Photomatics to do real estate photography. And like I said, one day. We're still a work in progress.
It's going to be a good course. It's just I've been seeing it, and I don't know if I'm helping or not, but I've been going through it too, and it's going to be good. So check it out. Lauri in Chicago, what else can we know about you?
I can be found at laurinovak.com and at Lauri Novak Photo on Facebook and Instagram, and that's about it.
Photofocus.com
and Photofocus. Yes, sorry.
Lauri, are you leader of that community, Photofocus?
Yes,
community?
I'm the community manager of the Photofocus community.
Yeah, I try to check in there sometimes. Again, it's one of those, so many things we want to do.
No, it's hard. I get it. And everybody is in so many places too,
Even Photofocus people, we're all doing extraneous things on our own.
Yep, definitely.
I always forget to say something about myself, but...
So Ron, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. I always say, okay, adios. Yeah, you can ronpepper.com. It's kind of shows the different things I'm doing, but needs updating as well. And rpepper Instagram. Should we all build up Twitter again, or are we going with Vero?
I'm actually, I post there pretty much every day to
Wow.
Twitter.
I post automatically.
Yeah, I do too.
Instagram,
Yeah.
that's a fabulous tool.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thanks to our panelists, and thanks to Photofocus. I meant to say thanks to Photomatics for sponsoring. Much appreciated. Again, hdrsoft.com. Try it out. If you have questions about it, you can shoot them to me. If you have questions that you'd like us to go over on a Q&A show, shoot those to the same questions at photofocus.com. You can use that for all of those. I'll see the messages, and if it's appropriate for me to answer, I will. Audio questions, email questions. We have a Q&A show coming up next week, and maybe between 2 and 4 of the people you're hearing today may be on it. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you then. Get out, shoot the fall photos, just like Spider-Man would do. All right. And until next week, you'll hear me next month for another roundtable. Signing off.
Leaving Texas is number 1 because we don't have fall here.
There is a tagline, right? It's like, I'm good enough.
The sensor size still matters, right? Because
Moving along on that awkward note.